All right,
Go
at
to
this
this
time, we'll do a
consent
public
calendar.
hearing on 23-24 biennial budget, 2023 property tax levy, 2023 user fees, 2023 surface water utility rate, and 2023-24 sewer utility rates. City Finance Director Lindsay Bond, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. And council members, can you, is it, yep, it's picking me up. Okay. So thank you, Matt, for bringing up the presentation, and most of what we're going to go over this evening for most council members will look very familiar. So walking right into it, maybe. There we go. There's just going to be a brief overview presentation by me, the finance director. We're going to move into questions and comments from city council on the budget. And then the third item is going to be that we're going to open the public hearing for citizen comments for that piece of it. Moving on, the first portion is the proposed 2023 property tax. The city, even though the city does propose and adopt a biennial budget, the city does have to adopt the property tax annually. And the only portion of the, actually, I'll wait to say that until later. Moving on to the 1% is the increase of the 1% is the value of 33,826. There is a couple of other components that is within the property tax, being the new construction and the re-levying for prior year refunds, which is both of those things are a little bit new construction, it's valued at a certain point, and then we end up with it. The re-levy, that's just an item that's a little out of our control. We do base the proposed 2023 property tax on a preliminary number. So therefore, we estimate high for any additional changes. So that $40,000 is a placeholder in order to capture any changes that may occur prior to the actual finalization for the property tax. So moving on to the next slide. Again, I just did the snippet of the 1% to have it on this slide in addition to assist with this portion of the conversation. So the current levy rate for 2022 is the 0.83814, and the proposed levy rate for 2023 is 0.70430. Again, everybody's assessed value. If you own property within the city of Lake Forest Parks, there is an assessed value on your property, your home. And so we do provide the calculation so that after this, everybody can go home and calculate what this means for their own individual situation. So going over to the examples to the right side, the median property value is $676,400. However, in 2022, the median property value within the city of Lake Forest Park was $617,000. So taking that math, we presented this a little bit differently on the previous meeting. It came up from a council member to using the 2022 median with that. So we changed how we presented it on this slide or for this public hearing going forward. So we captured the 2022 rate with the 2022 median value and presented it that way. And then did the same going from the current proposed, the new proposed rate with the current median value for 2023. The really hard concept to grasp is as assessed values continue to go up, the levy rate will go down, which is being shown from our 2022 to our 2023 levy rate. And no matter how much the assessed value in the city increases, the city's levy may only increase, and that's highlighted, 1%. So, and I will just leave it at that for this moment. So walking down to the next slide, this was a flyer that was put into a newsletter that we put together. And I think this just helps visually assist the conversation about property tax. The only portion that we're discussing this evening is the city's portion, and the city's portion is about 8%, which the pie chart on the left shows. The other 92% are other agencies, which then when you walk to the right side of the screen, it demonstrates what those other agencies are that are receiving the bulk of the property tax that are being paid. And so I think the highlight there is just to say that the city's portion is an 8% sliver of the total property tax that's being paid. So walking down to the next subject of the proposed sewer rate increases, we did some adjustments here, again, based on our conversation from Monday night's meeting. So we changed some stuff around, highlighting that the proposed 2023 sewer rate will increase by $3.45 on a monthly basis and $3.62 in 2024. That rate increase is being driven from two portions of the sewer rate. The King County has a portion of it, which is allowing all of our sewer to make its way to Seattle to be treated properly. And then the city's portion, which is in order to operate our main operations and assist on our capital fund. So two things. And I just want to say, and it's broken out individually where the King County's portion is increasing in 23 and 24 by 5.75%. That is 100% a direct pass through. That's King County raising their rate and the city of Lake Forest Park having to raise the rate at the exact amount so that we can capture the revenue that we're going to end up having to expense. The city of Lake Forest Park is proposing to increase 3% every single year because previously, you'll see in 2022, it was proposed and adopted to do a 6% increase because historically, the county increased their rate. We did a leapfrog where they would increase it one year and then the city would increase it the other to kind of do a leapfrog for rate payers. And the 6% comes from a rate study that was completed back in 2004. So now that King County has changed their methodology of increasing the rates on an annual basis, we are following that and proposing to start increasing ours on an annual basis of 3% to follow. And then just something of note, residents within Lake Forest Park are billed on a bi-monthly basis. So if you go home and you say, my invoice isn't the $72.88 or the $69 currently right now for 2022, right? That they are billed, we do bill on a bi-monthly basis. So the new invoice amount would be the $145.76. Walking down to the proposed surface water rate increases, the annual increase is $22.39 for a single family residential class, I guess is probably the best way to state it. And this supports the operating and the capital surface water funds. So it's doing both things. And it is a proposed 10% rate increase. And similar to property tax on this one, it has to be adopted on an annual basis because it is administered through King County and has to be administered through King County to follow property taxes. And then down below on the actual slide description or on the table, you'll see the 2022 rate, the 2023 rate, and the difference for each class below that. And the very light all the way to class 2, I guess is a more appropriate way to say it, through class 7, those typically are tied to commercial. So walking down to through all of the budget discussions, I'm going to thank some council members for asking for household examples. What does this mean? There's a bunch of rate increases being discussed. What does this mean to a household for rate increases? So we put together like a household example for both utility rate increases. And the monthly increase is about $5.32. It doesn't round out perfectly, but we got close. And then if you go annual, it's an increase of $63.79. And so we did the 2023 monthly and the annual amount, and walking over on the right-hand side, you have the current, the 2022 monthly and annual example. And then walking down to the user rate increases, probably the biggest increase, which was discussed at a previous council meeting, was the building code increases, which vary for the individual permits and services. The false alarm fines are increasing to $52 to $103 from $50. Passport photos are being proposed to increase. The sewer water rate is being proposed to be increased for both the King County portion and the city's portion. The surface water rate increase is being proposed to increase annually, again, to support the ongoing operations and in addition, capital. And previously, I didn't state that the city has done, I'll pause here and just take the moment, that the city has been a leader in continuing to produce and complete our surface water culverts in order L60, that should sound familiar. But it's come at a cost. And so we need to start rebuilding our capital fund in order to try. And as you heard from a little earlier, Shelley, we're also trying to advocate that on a state level in order for additional funding to support that. And then moving forward to the technology fee, there simply is a significant cost to the technology that the city is seeing. And so we're proposing to increase that fee from 5% to 10%. And then going on to the final slide is the internal service funds. This is actually, I think, a very exciting thing to discuss, that we need to fix our 501 fund description. Doesn't match exactly how it's being used. So we need to change the name to state exactly how it's being used, which is a vehicle and equipment replacement fund, and update the description to follow that. What's newly being proposed is Fund 502, which is an information technology fund. Previously, or currently, I should say, information technology is being captured within 501, and it's being handled on the same model we're proposing to handle it in Fund 502. However, we're just proposing to break it out and fund it separately so it's more transparent to council members, the public, of the ongoing costs, the increased costs of technology. And so it's an effort to break it out and let them stand on their own 2 feet so that they're very separate. And for the future going forward for budgeting, it's just simply more transparent so we can have those conversations separately. And then I believe that concludes my presentation. Are there any city council questions or comments?
Councilmember Lebo, then Councilmember Bodie.
Thank you, Director Vaughn, for the presentation. I've got 3 parts. Is that okay, or do?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Can you go back to the very beginning where we're looking at the property tax?
Matt, can you help me not make people sick?
We appreciate that.
One more.
Keep first one
keep
or
going.
this one?
That one. Could you just describe a couple things here? So on the new construction value, that value gets added to what we might consider the base. So the next year, it represents a new base.
That is correct.
So you could see an increase in property tax revenue that is greater than 1% because of the new construction in total. Because it's increasing the base.
So you're saying the assessed
No,
value?
That's That's the question.
the total of the assessed value for the city would change.
Yes.
Yes,
So the net increase is actually greater than 1% because if you have new construction, that value gets added to essentially the base.
correct. But that new construction value, that 17,865 is a one-time cost. That is a one-time that doesn't, but you are correct that
it-
assessed value does go into,
Yeah, it occurs when you have new construction.
that is correct.
And the second part is the re-levy of prior year refunds. Could you explain what that means?
I will do my best. It's complex. So basically, it's if there is any variance in a prior year refund or a variation with the county, then it's submitted for a refund. And sometimes what can happen is the city, and actually I'll just admit, this is the highest I've seen it. Normally it's a very low number. And so it's just basically is truing up a prior year refund. So it's from a prior year, a change or something that was a variance that was ended up being worked out possibly after the 2022 was closed. Then they tack it on to the next year to bring it in order to pay it to the appropriate entity.
So it's King County's way of truing up from the previous year if there is something that,
Correct.
Okay.
For a variance for a parcel within the city of Lake Forest Park's limits.
in this case, though, it represents revenue. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And then third question is all the way back at the other end, which is,
I'm gonna turn around. Or can you
Which
draw
slide?
and move on?
sorry, which is, and maybe you can just answer it. The technology fee going
Yep.
from 5 to 10%, is that actually an internal issue? It's not actually a change in taxes or fees to the public. It's just merely internal.
So
Charge to the units?
that
or
is not, no, it actually is on the user fee schedule and it is tied to permits that are produced from the city. So when we issue permits, there's a technology fee that's associated with issuing those building permits. And that's, I think I might have to ask for some help here. Is it just building permits?
So was that in the previous exhibits that we received or discussion?
It is in the packet and I'm referring mainly, it is in the packet and it's tied mainly to the building is my understanding.
Did we previously talk about this? I
Yeah,
don't
we-
recall.
Yeah, we had brought this up in previous meetings and it's tied to, it's also tied to planning applications. I think the
Yes,
one that it
sorry.
does not tie to passports. There are some restrictions on what we can charge for
There's-
passports. It's applications from outside applicant into the city, the technology that we use.
Okay. But when you pay a permit, is it a separate line item or is it actually within the value of the permit?
It's a
It-
separate line item
Mhm.
and it is called out on the application
Mhm.
form.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Yes, Councilmember Fairtime? Oh, you're done with your three?
I
Okay,
am.
then
That was
Councilmember
the
Bodie,
reason.
sorry, quit interrupting her, okay? Councilmember Bodie.
Just a quick question, Director Vaughn. So on the surface water rate increases, could you clarify where those mandates are coming? As I recall, we have federal, state, and local mandates that are triggering a need to update our surface water management plans and then operations over time.
That is true. That is very true. So as actually Shelley even pointed out in her presentation earlier today, there are mandates for the culverts and the fish passage. And we have been a leader. The city has truly been a leader in completing these projects, but they're very costly, which we have found out through the completion of L60 and right now currently attempting to design L90. So it's come at a cost, but yes, they are not being, driven internally just by projects that we would like to do. It is being driven by state mandates and federal requirements. And we're doing our best to comply with the amount of culverts that we have to replace within the city limits.
So one follow-up question. So in the course of putting together these rate and user fee increases, has the city looked at what actual staffing to implement and administer those programs requires? And do these reflect updates to those actual administrative costs?
And that would be, we would define that as the operating side. So yes, and as much as our senior project manager has been in front of you this year, that has been a result of all of the Clean Water Act, basically federal mandates that have come down the pipeline, and there's a cost to them, a significant cost on staying compliant with all of the stormwater requirements. And then hiring for the work to be completed. That does come at an operational cost, but in addition, we're trying to cover that additional cost that has been newly incurred, and then also fund the capital cost and rebuild that fund balance on the capital side in order to complete some of these projects and assist and have grant matches in addition. So if we're able to secure a certain amount of funding, but they like us to have some skin in the game too. It's our bucket of money in order to have that grant match to be able to complete another project.
Yes, I was just trying to get at the point that our staffing costs and materials costs across the board have increased. And so those are reflected in the new rates and user fees across the board, whether you're talking about building permit fees or other things. So anyway, thank you.
Would you like to add any? Okay.
No. She got her answer and some. Councilmember Furtoni?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, and thanks, Director Vaughn, for your great presentation as always. Can I get the slides back? The particular one is the pie chart one.
And for the record, we will post these presentations on the budget and finance page of, I'll just take a minute. I was trying to give them some time. We'll post these presentations in addition.
Thank you. Yeah, and in fact, thank you, Matt. The pie chart on the left that you're referring to, where the city's portion of the tax, property tax distribution is 8%. What we'll be discussing this levy increase of 1% this tonight, and just wanted to clarify that just because we increase the levy lid by 1% doesn't mean that 8% suddenly becomes 9%.
It could, I mean, it could vary a little bit. And I think we've been as high as like, almost 8.6 or something. So when you do it on a pie chart, it swings a little bit. So yes, that 8% could vary, but it's going to stay right between the 8 and 9%.
Right. So in other words, just because we talk about this 1%, it's not like our piece of the pie is necessarily getting proportionally bigger.
No.
Right. And that's a really important point that I think, needs to be emphasized, because when we talk about these increases, these percentages we talk about are based off of different pies, as it were. And so it's good to be clear that this one is not going to increase that orange slice particularly much.
And in fact, I will add to that, if the state, if King County, if the library or fire district, if they change something in theirs, it would actually be the opposite, where our portion of the pie would go down.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yes, great question. Yes, it was. With you, Councilmember